Welcome back. Today I'm going to take a look at a game that I played almost a month ago. And the reason that I chose this game is because last night I got a message from chess.com saying that one of my recent opponents had been found in violation of the Fair Play Act, and that they had added 8 points to my rapid rating. So I decided to go back in my game archive and find out if I could figure out who it was. And that's not always easy because it said recent, so I scrolled back through my archive quite a ways before I found somebody whose account had been closed for violation of the Fair Play Act, and that was on October 1st, which was a month ago as I'm recording this now. And when I went to their archive, which is what I'm looking at now, I went all the way back to August, which is far back as it'll let me go, and they were rated in nearly 1,400 at that point, and it looks like most of their games were losses. And in fact, here's a game where they won against somebody else who had apparently violated the fair play rules as well. But again, most of these were losses, and it looks like this opponent had gone down into the thousands, 1027, 992, 986, 997. I think the 992 was as low as they got. But none of this follows the traditional pattern of a cheater that we've been told to expect. Like, they won a bunch of games in a row. If you scroll through this, there's some wins, there's some losses, there's a draw, there's some wins, losses. Looks like every other game here for just a little bit, and they were playing it around the thousands. Looks like they dropped into the 900s again here. But then suddenly, as you get into September, they started winning a bunch of games. Looks like 5 in a row and then lost one. And then they won a bunch in a row after that and then lost one. And they're climbed up into the 1100s here. And then as you keep going up, there's a loss, 3 wins, a loss, a win, a loss, a couple of wins. Looks like quite a few in a row here until you get to the game where they played against me. And I was in the upper 1100s at this time, and so were they. We were rated within a few points of each other. And then if you keep going, look, they had 3 losses in a row, but then they started winning. Loss, win, win, loss, but then 3 losses in a row. So again, it doesn't follow the pattern that you've been led to expect, from cheaters. They played a bunch of games, though, through October, if we go on to the next page here. And here they won a ton of games in a row. I don't know how many that is, like 15 or something in a row. But then they went back to losing 1, winning 3, losing 1, winning 4, losing 1, going up until the current time here, which is October 27th, was the last game that they had played, apparently. And they had made it back up into the 1300s again. So anyway, I was curious as to whether or not they cheated against me, because it looks like they were rated in the 1300s and then had dropped into the 900s and then came back up to the 1300s before their account was closed. So when I run the game review on the game that they played against me, it said that they played with 92% accuracy and I played with about 70% accuracy, which is pretty common at my rating range. I do, of course, have some games where I get as high as 90 and other games where, I'm as low as 50 something. But usually it's around 70% accuracy. And it said I played like a 1050, which is lower than my rating, and they played like a 1950. But that in itself isn't unusual, because here on this channel I featured games where I played against somebody rated similarly to me, where I played with 90-something% accuracy, and it said I played like a 1950. That's happened a couple of times. Not very often. If I played like a 1950 all the time, then obviously I wouldn't be rated around 1200. But according to the game review, it does say that they had a couple of inaccuracies, and I had 4 mistakes. And according to this graph, we were very even until I had a very slight chance here, but I messed up. They played a brilliant move right after that. And then not too long after, I messed up again. And then we just went straight on to the end. Now, this wasn't a really long game. It was only 17 moves. So let's take a look and see what happened. My opponent opened with d4, which has been my problem opening. I've been opening with knight to f6 in response to that. Lots of ways that white can play here. Most people play c4, and this one did. The computer wants me to play e6 or c6 at this point. But I've been playing g6 in order to fianchetto my bishop, and it doesn't look like that was much worse. And my opponent played a very normal move here, which is getting the knight out. I fianchettoed the bishop. Now here I would expect an opponent to play knight to c3, even though the engine says there's probably a bunch of moves rated right around the same. They did play knight to c3, and here the engine wants me to play d5. I've been playing d6 here or castling, but it says d5 is slightly better. I wonder what it would expect my opponent to play if I played d5. It said it would expect them to play queen to b3, but I don't know. They might take, or they might push past. I have no idea what they would have played if I'd played d5, but I played d6, which is a book move or in the king's Indian defense, normal variation. My opponent's best move here is e4, which I have seen. I've been in this exact position against multiple opponents since I switched to this little setup here. And here I'm supposed to castle. I wasn't sure about that. I wasn't sure if I needed to castle just yet. I decided to go ahead and fianchetto the other bishop. So I played b6, which pumps up the rating in my opponent's favor just a little bit more. And Stockfish is claiming here that it would play h3 or bishop to g5. Okay, I think I have had opponents play bishop to g5 here. I'm not sure about h3, but I think I've also had opponents push this pawn because, again, I'm pretty sure I've been in this exact position before. Maybe not with this pawn push. Maybe I did something else in the meantime, but I've had opponents push a pawn here after I get this set up, whether or not I've castled. And the idea is, of course, that when I take that pawn, they're going to take back, and then this knight's in trouble. And that's what my opponent played here. That was counted as inaccurate, but it's still about even. Of course, I'm going to take it. It's the only move that keeps us close to even. And in every instance, other than this one, that I can remember, whenever they have pushed that pawn and I've taken it, my opponent has taken back with the E pawn, with the D pawn, sorry. But that says it would be a mistake. And so maybe this is an example of the opponent, getting a little help, either from a stronger player or maybe being a stronger player who intentionally got their rating down. I have no idea. I don't know this person. I don't know what chess.com found out about them. I have no idea what went on behind the scenes. I just know that they closed their account and they notified me of it. Yeah, here I honestly expected them to take with this pawn, and because that's happened to me before, and I didn't know that it was bad. But they took with the knight, which was their only good move. And that seemed unusual to me. So here, seeing nothing really that knight can do from there other than just being irritating, I went ahead and fianchettoed this bishop. That does look like it's my best move, although I had at least one more that was fine. Now my opponent is supposed to check me, queen to a4. It's not their only good move. They could play bishop to e2 and it would be okay, but it says they would delay castling quite a bit in that line. Again, I don't think I've ever been in this position before, anything like this, because again, I don't think anybody that I've played has taken that pawn with this knight. But my opponent did check queen to a4. And at this point, I thought I had a problem because they've got that knight in there. It's guarding d7. So I'm not going to block with my queen, right? So I could have blocked with either knight. The engine would block with this knight over here, which I find interesting because that leaves this one undeveloped. I do remember considering knight b to d7, but I did not consider knight f to d7. I don't know why you would bring that one back. And I also considered the c6 pawn, which is my second best move, and it's what I played. But I'm trying right now to remember why I chose that over this knight out. But what would have been the problem with playing this? Okay, it would have been about the same. All right, that's what I wanted to know because it wasn't listed there. But bringing the f knight back, if anybody knows why bringing the f knight back is slightly better, let me know. But I played c6, which was almost as good. We're still right at even, and my opponent is now supposed to play bishop to e3 or bring that knight back. That's interesting. So they brought this in here for nothing. And it says no matter which one of those they played, I would castle. But my opponent didn't play one of those. My opponent played c5, which was considered inaccurate by the game review. I have a very slight advantage. It's less than -1 if I'll castle and I still, keep us close to even by playing knight to d5. Okay, so Stockfish did not want this knight here for some reason. Earlier it wanted me to bring it back. Now it wants me to put it on d5. And it says they would take it with their rear knight and then I would take this front knight. But I should have just castled here. Well, I saw an opportunity to attack my opponent's queen. A lot of times, if I get an opponent that has a queen out before they've developed pieces, before they've castled, they've got two bishops, they haven't moved at all. They've hopped two knights out and hopped one of them in directly to the center and brought a queen out like they were trying to checkmate me. In almost every instance, I attack their queen if I can safely, and it looked like I could safely attack it with this pawn, but that's listed as a mistake because they can give up this bishop for it. Now, clearly my opponent has, multiple pieces guarding that square right there. So yeah, they could take with the bishop or the knight, and I would take back, and then they move in, and then I don't have a pawn to block with anymore. But I wouldn't have expected, and those are the two best moves, to take with the bishop or the knight. I wouldn't have expected any opponent to do that. This opponent took with the bishop, and it looks like they didn't spend a ton of time on it, less than 10 seconds taking with the bishop. Now, when that happened, I didn't think it was devastating. Obviously, there's no brilliant symbol that pops up during the game. I thought, well, I'm just going to take it, and they're going to take, and yeah, that's going to be check, but then, and then if I block with the knight, the bishop's undefended. Of course, it is my best move to take the bishop with the pawn, so I did. It's their best move to take here, and I'm supposed to block with knight to c6. That's my best move. See, I thought they would take it. Oh, and it does say that they would take it, and they would just have a free piece. And if I block knight b to d7, which is my second best move, then they're going to get my bishop for free. So either way, they're getting a free piece. Well, I should have blocked with one of those, but for whatever reason, I decided to move my king over. And of course, they get my bishop for free. My opponent spent less than 5 seconds on that move. And now they're going to get my rook unless I get that knight out of there. So I got the knight out of there. Now they're supposed to drop this knight into c6, which would attack my queen. And then I would move it over one. They would trade queens and I would take, and it would just be, they would just be a piece ahead at that point with me having lost the ability to castle. So not an ideal situation for me. They didn't put that knight in on c6 or drop it back, which is their second best move. They played c6, which attacks this knight, but that still leaves them way ahead. It is my best move to take the knight that's on e5, so I took the knight on e5. I didn't know what else to do. I know I'm a piece down, and I know that they can take back with the pawn. That's their only good move in that situation. Well, and now I have to run away with this knight. The engine says it would put it on e8 or g4, but I put it on h5, which is slightly worse. Their best move is c7. I was worried about that, I admit. I wasn't sure what I would play if they played that. I thought I might offer the queen trade and see if I could just last as long as possible. But their second best move is g4 to go after the knight. That seems like a natural move, you know, for somebody even at my level, since they've clearly not, you know, had any desire to castle. Just play g4 now. That one didn't surprise me at all. As soon as I moved my knight there, I thought they might play that, and now this knight is lost too. My best move is to take the free pawn, or play rook to c8, which I guess gives up this other pawn over here, but helps to stop that one. But I played rook to b8, which again gives up this pawn, but I thought maybe it would chase their queen out of there. But that's a mistake because now they can move that pawn forward. And I was pretty sure I was lost here. I had no idea, nor would I have guessed, that my best move again was to take the e5 pawn. The knight's lost no matter what I do. My second best move is to take that pawn. But I took their queen and then realized I had given up checkmate. Okay, so I made plenty of mistakes in this game, but my opponent had some points in there where they played quite a bit better than the average person at my level would. The brilliant move was one of them, where they took the pawn with the bishop. That's one that I wouldn't have expected somebody at my level to play. If they were going to give up a piece for that pawn, I would have expected them to do it with the knight, because I've had opponents do that. For whatever reason, whenever, you know, there's a piece that can be given up for a pawn, they almost always choose the knight first. So that one's a little sus to me, but not incredibly so. But the other one was here, where they took this with the knight instead of the pawn. And after that, I was in completely strange territory, because, yeah, I would not have expected them to take with the knight there. But there's a full 1 point evaluation difference between those two. Okay, well, let's go here and see if we can figure out my mistakes. What I should have done here was castled. Okay, so I shouldn't have worried about this pawn. If they took, I could take back because my rook is currently defended, so I shouldn't have been worried about that. I guess I also could have taken with the queen, and as long as this pawn is still here and it's, you know, it's defended well by the knight and the bishop, I should have just castled. Okay, I think I understand that. Or played knight to d5 and it would have been close to even. I think this one I do understand. Okay, the next one was here, and I'm already down. And all these other mistakes, I was already down. I was already, you know, on the ropes, as they say. But here I had to give up a piece here or here, and it's +2. But if I do this, it's +4, and I still give up a piece. But I don't understand why that one's so much worse. I mean, yeah, it gives up the right to castle, but I'm losing a piece either way, whether it's the knight or the bishop. I thought it was one of those situations where I had to move the king over. I don't know why I thought that. But anyway, let's go on to this position where, yeah, see, in this one I'm already lost. I'm already down a piece, and I'm about to be down 2 pieces. So yeah, I don't fault myself for not finding that as my absolute best move, or h6 as my second best move. I definitely shouldn't have gone after the queen, though. Wait, earlier it didn't say h6. Earlier it said something else. It was rook to c8, wasn't it? That's what it said earlier. But yeah, rook to b8, I get how that doesn't make sense. And I'm not even suspicious of this move by my opponent. I think people at my level, maybe even me, could have found that one because of, you know, how bad my mistake was. But again, I was already lost. The only one here that's really important to me is right here, where I should have just left the pawns alone, not chased the queen, and just castled first. That makes sense. Their queen is pointed at my king, and their knight is in here centralized, pointed at 2 squares very close to my king. It makes sense to castle. Then my king's on the opposite side of the board from their queen, and they have to, you know, reconfigure the whole situation. It's not minus 0.7 or 8 like it said earlier. Now it's just 0.5. But yeah, this one I understand, and it's the only one that really mattered. For the rest of them, I was already behind, and significantly so in most of those cases. Okay, I'm not enough of an expert. If I was an expert at chess and how to detect a cheater and stuff like that, I would probably have a much higher rating, and I wouldn't keep making videos on I'm still at 1200 or whatever. So I don't know. I can't tell. Maybe one of you's, you know, 1800 or has studied cheating in depth, and maybe you can tell whether or not they used a little help in this game. But anyway, there were definitely some signs after my game that there was some shenanigans going on here, because almost nobody wins 4 games and loses 1, and then wins 5 games and loses 1, and then wins 4 games and loses 1, and, you know, finishes off with 5 games here. That happens to so few of us. Well, in here, this section here, from when they were rated about 1173, which is interesting. That's very close to the rating that they were when they played me, but this was 2 weeks after they played me. But then here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games that they won and a draw. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games in a row. But even that isn't really suspicious, is it? Because it wasn't that long ago that I won something like 12 games in a row. I made a video about my longest ever winning streak. But mine didn't come after this, where they were winning 3 and losing 1, winning 3 and losing 1, winning 5 and losing 1. Mine came after a long string of losses in which I had fallen from the rating that I probably should have been at, and then I worked my way back up to that. This string of wins here maybe is suspicious because it came after a bunch of previous wins with just 1 loss interspersing every so many games. And they reviewed almost none of these. Maybe their opponent reviewed this one where it says that my opponent played with only 82% accuracy, so not, incredibly great. And here 86. And then this one that they lost just a week before their account was closed, says they played with 52% accuracy. But then a few days later, they're winning with 92% accuracy. And again, not most of these games were not reviewed here. They won with 88%. So maybe there's a little bit suspicious there. But anyway, that was what's on my mind today. I wanted to take a look at the game. It's clear that I could have done better. And this is the case where I need to, I guess, remind myself that in that situation where the opponent hasn't developed or castled, but they've got their queen out, I don't always have to chase it. And in fact, I have been caught out on that before. So I think that's the lesson I'm going to take from this game is that before I chase the queen, take a look around, see what else is going on. Like this to me right now is very important. The fact that their queen is pointed at my king. I would not have expected them to give up a piece for the pawn, either the knight or the bishop. But I also didn't have to chase the queen. I could have castled first. And I see that now. Anyway, if you have any input, feel free to drop it in the comments. Thank you for spending your time here. And I'll see you next time.